Episode 3 opens far before the joining, taking us back 2,617 days to a trip Carol Sturka takes with her partner and manager Helen to an ice hotel in Norway. The milestone getaway is meant to celebrate Carol's growing success, but the flashback quietly reveals the tension between them. Helen embraces the freezing novelty of the hotel and the sky filled with northern lights, while Carol stays glued to her phone, obsessively checking her book's ranking. The moment captures a rare time when Helen tries to pull Carol into life, urging her to enjoy what's in front of her. From here, the episode returns to 3 days before the joining, where Carol is on a commercial flight back to New Mexico after meeting the other English-speaking immune. Zosia sits nearby, offering her a spot in first class, but Carol waves her off until she needs information. She asks about the immune people who can't speak English well, and Zosia lists them: a candy vendor in Istanbul, a contortionist in Bali, a retired fisherman in Sardinia, an 8-year-old in Lesotho, and a muezzin in Yemen. The final immune, Manus Oviedo in Paraguay, has avoided contact entirely. Carol insists on calling him, leading to a series of brief, hostile exchanges that end with Carol cursing him out in Spanish. Once they land in Albuquerque, Carol tries to get rid of Zosia at the curb, but Zosia insists on handing over all Carol's collected mail. One envelope bears Helen's name, and Carol lingers on it. A larger package contains a personal massager Helen bought for her, something Carol once wanted but refused to buy. That small detail pushes Carol to anger. Overwhelmed, she orders the others to erase Helen completely from their collective mind. They are never to mention or recall her again. Only I get to remember her, she says, making the boundary absolute. Left alone, Carol buries herself in Golden Girls episodes until a ding of the doorbell interrupts her. The others have delivered a breakfast tray, knowing she has little food in the house. Carol throws it straight into the outdoor trash and demands that they stop trying to help. But hunger wins out, so she drives to the local Sprouts supermarket, only to find the store shelves stripped bare. Zosia explains that the others consolidated all food storage to be more efficient. Carol insists she can shop on her own. Minutes later, trucks flood the parking lot, and the others restock the entire store in perfect rhythm, turning her argument into a display of their limitless coordination. That night, the city's lights vanish, except for those in Carol's neighborhood. Zosia explains that most power is shut down now that crime and most jobs no longer exist. In frustration, Carol says that the only thing that could fix her week is a hand grenade, a sarcastic comment she expects to be ignored. Hours later, Zosia returns to Carol's doorstep, holding an actual grenade. The others debated whether she was joking, but chose not to risk denying her request. Carol lets her into the house for a drink. As they talk, Zosia explains that the others work constantly and still don't know when Carol will join their mind. Their need to bring her in is instinctive, an unstoppable biological force. Carol pushes further, challenging their idea of saving her, reminding Zosia that her memories of Norway with Helen are off-limits. Eventually, Carol picks up the grenade, convinced it must be fake. She pulls the pin. Zosia reacts instantly, grabs the live grenade from her hand, hurls it out the window, and tackles Carol to the ground. The explosion blows out every window of the unicorn truck and scatters burning debris across the yard. Zosia staggers out, collapsing with her back covered in shrapnel. By morning, Carol waits in the hospital as an other updates her on Zosia's condition. No nerve damage, a serious concussion, and monitoring required. But Carol only wants to know why they gave her a real grenade in the first place. Their answer is simple. If she asks, they give. If she wanted another grenade, they would bring one. A tank, too. Almost anything she requests, they will deliver, except an atomic bomb, where even they draw a line. The realization lands heavily on Carol. The others cannot refuse her. Whether it's help, resources, or something dangerous, their drive to satisfy her overrides every other instinct. It leaves her standing in the hospital hallway with a new kind of power, one she didn't ask for and one she clearly doesn't trust. Episode 4 opens with a flashback to Manus Oviedo, the only immune person Carol had failed to reach in Episode 3. Before the timeline catches up to their first call, we see him living alone in the Paraguayan storage facility he once managed. The shelves are empty, food is gone, and the world around him has already fallen under the joining. Manusos is stubbornly holding out on his own. Even starving, he refuses help from the hive, convinced he can survive without them. He spends his days monitoring a homemade radio rig, logging faint signals and trying to understand what has happened to everyone else. Hunger finally forces him to break his own rules. He writes a polite apology note to the renter of a storage unit before forcing it open and finding only dog food, which he forces himself to eat. At that exact moment, his phone rings. The first call from Carol. Her awkward, overly polite attempt to communicate only convinces him she is one of them. When she calls back and curses him out, Manusos finally realizes she is immune like him. It's the first real connection he has felt in months. The episode then returns to Carol immediately after the grenade accident that sent Zosia to the hospital. Carol drives home in a barely functioning car, then resorts to taking an abandoned police cruiser. When she arrives, her street is full of hive mind volunteers repairing the damage, including the town mayor, now just another member of the collective. Carol watches them silently and begins planning how to stop the infection from taking her too. Inside, she sets up a whiteboard and begins listing everything she knows about the others, including one question she needs to confirm. Can they lie? To test this, she brings in a hive mind volunteer named Larry. What follows is a simple but revealing interrogation. Larry answers every question with complete openness, even when the truth is awkward or painful. He quotes Carol's books word for word, explains why the hive loves them, and eventually answers the question Carol least wants to ask. What did Helen truly think of her writing? Larry relays Helen's private thoughts exactly. She found Carol's books harmless, a truth Carol didn't expect and didn't want. But it confirms what she needs. The hive cannot lie. Carol visits Zosia in the hospital next. Zosia is still recovering from the shrapnel wounds and concussion she suffered saving Carol from the grenade. When Carol asks if the hive has learned anything new about the infection, Zosia quietly admits they now understand far more than they did at first. Carol asks whether there is a way to reverse the change. Zosia doesn't answer directly, but her silence is enough. Carol realizes there is a way out. The hive simply doesn't want her to know. Determined, Carol leaves the hospital and gathers materials. She visits a pharmacy, takes sodium thiopental, and tests the drug on herself. Under its influence, she records a video, speaking freely and without restraint. What she hears later confirms her deepest fear. Joining the hive would erase everything that made her. Helen, her grief, her anger, and even her stubbornness, all of it is part of the life she wants to keep. Believing the truth serum can force answers the hive cannot willingly give, Carol returns to Zosia. Pretending she wants to take her outside for fresh air, Carol secretly injects her with the drug and wheels her out of the hospital. But the dosage interacts with whatever medication Zosia is already on, and she quickly becomes distressed and confused. Carol presses her for the antidote anyway, desperate for a real answer. But Zosia's panic triggers a medical crisis. She collapses into cardiac arrest. The hive converges almost instantly. Dozens of bodies surround Zosia, their faces alert and unified. Carol panics, thinking they will take Zosia away and hide the truth. She grabs a police handcuff from the car and chains herself to Zosia, screaming that she won't let them separate them. But the hive shows no aggression. They simply wait for Carol to decide. If she doesn't allow them to help, they will let Zosia die, because Carol is the immune one, and her choices override everything the hive wants. Realizing this, Carol breaks. She releases Zosia's hand and finally allows the others to intervene. They move in silently, beginning life-saving measures, but the episode ends without revealing whether Zosia survives.